Welcome to David's Stories. Today we follow Tom Fitzgerald, a 63-year-old millionaire who just sold his company for $38 million only to discover his beloved nephew is plotting to murder him for the fortune. A whispered warning from a fake girlfriend, a deadly cottage night, and a heart-wrenching betrayal. One question: who do you trust when family wants you dead? Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's dive into this chilling true story. The sun was bleeding out across Lake Rousseau, the kind of sunset that makes you believe the world is ending in fire and gold. I stood on the end of the dock, phone pressed hard enough against my ear to leave it a mark, listening to my banker repeat the number one last time. 38 million, Mr. Fitzgerald. Cleared and confirmed. Congratulations. $38 million. 3 hours ago, those words would have felt like the finish line. Now they just sounded like a target painted on my back. I ended the call and stared across the water. The loons were already calling that haunting, mournful laugh that echoes for miles up here in Muskoka. I'd heard it every summer for 35 years, but tonight it felt different, like a warning. Footsteps on the weathered boards behind me, soft, deliberate. I started to turn, figuring it was Patricia coming to drag me in for dinner, but a hand brushed my elbow and a woman's voice, low and urgent, slipped into my ear like cold lake water down the back of my neck. Don't sign anything tomorrow. A pause. Barely a breath. Check the beneficiary clause. It's not what you agreed to. I froze. The phone was still warm in my hand. The sunset flared crimson on the waves. Jennifer, Tyler's girlfriend of 8 months, the one I'd only met properly this afternoon. Dark ponytail, McGill hoodie, city polite smile. She'd shaken my hand like any 26-year-old meeting her boyfriend's rich uncle for the first time. Nothing about her had screamed danger. Until now. She was standing half a step behind me, close enough that I could smell the faint trace of her shampoo mixed with wood smoke from the barbecue. Her eyes weren't on me. They were on the cottage windows, where the others moved like shadows behind warm yellow light. I kept my voice down. "What the hell are you talking about? Page 19, subsection 4? She whispered. "If you die within the first year of the partnership, Tyler gets full ownership. Not 50%. 100. Your heirs get nothing." My stomach dropped so fast I felt the dock tilt under my boots. "How do you know what's in that contract?" She finally looked at me. The last sliver of sun caught the side of her face, and for a second, she didn't look 26. She looked ancient, tired, terrified. "Because I've been reading his laptop while he sleeps," she said, "and because my name isn't Jennifer Morton." The loons screamed again, closer this time, like they were laughing at me. I turned fully now, the phone forgotten in my fist. "Then who the hell are you, Jennifer Marchand? Former investigator, Ontario Securities Commission." She swallowed. "This started as a routine fraud file. It stopped being routine the night I found his search history. Carbon monoxide poisoning cottage. Drowning statistics, Muskoka. How long until life insurance pays out on accidental death?" The words hit me like individual bullets. Carbon monoxide, drowning, accidental death. I built a cybersecurity empire out of teaching people how to spot patterns, anomalies, red flags. 23 years of watching for the smallest glitch in code that could cost millions. And I had missed every single one in the boy I'd raised like a son. My mouth went dry. "You're telling me, Tyler?" "I'm telling you he's done this before," she cut in, voice barely louder than the waves lapping the dock posts. "Smaller amounts. 50,000 here, 100 there. He finds people who love him, people who trust him, people who want to help David's kid. Then he bleeds them dry and walks away when the company collapses. Bankruptcy wipes the slate clean. He starts over." She stepped closer. "You're not small potatoes, Tom. You're $19 million on the table, and a man with no kids, no wife, and a heart that's been broken for 2 years. You're the perfect mark. The perfect mark." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stared at her, this stranger wearing my nephew's girlfriend like a skin suit, and felt every year of my 63 suddenly settle on my shoulders. Through the trees, I could see Tyler in the kitchen window, laughing at something Ron said, lifting a beer and a mock toast. The same easy smile he'd had at 7 years old the first time I brought him up here after his dad died. The same smile at 17 when he opened his Waterloo acceptance letter. The same smile at 25 when I handed him a check for 50 grand and told him to chase his dreams. That smile was poison now. Jennifer No Marchand glanced over her shoulder again. We can't talk here. Walk with me. She didn't wait. She just started down the trail that hugs the shoreline, the one Margaret and I laid by hand the first summer we owned the place. I followed because my legs moved before my brain caught up. The light was almost gone. The path was nothing but shadows in the faint silver of water on our left. The loons kept calling farther away now, like they delivered their message and were washing their hands of the whole mess. I caught up to her. Why are you telling me this? Why not just arrest him? Because right now all I have is a dodgy contract clause and some creepy Google searches, she said. That's civil fraud at worst. The RCMP won't move without proof of criminal intent. And if I blow my cover too soon, he vanishes, starts over somewhere else. Maybe next time he actually succeeds. She stopped under a big white pine, the needles whispering overhead. But if you don't sign tomorrow, if you stall, we buy time. I stay inside, keep gathering. And maybe, just maybe, he tips his hand far enough that they can charge him with something that sticks. I looked back toward the cottage. The windows glowed like a ship I was no longer sure I belonged on. 30 minutes ago, I said slowly, Tyler offered me a special bourbon, said he brought it from Toronto just for me, wanted me to be the first to try it. Her whole body went rigid. Where's the bottle kitchen counter? Dark glass, fancy label. She closed her eyes for a second like she was praying. Don't drink anything he hands you. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever again. The wind shifted. Somewhere out on the lake, a boat motor growled to life and faded into the darkness. I felt the first real spike of fear, then not the intellectual kind, not the, oh, that's interesting kind. I got when a ransomware variant beat my defenses. This was bone-deep animal, the kind that makes your scalp tighten and your heart try to punch its way out of your ribs. Because I was standing on the exact spot where I taught Tyler to skip stones when he was 9, where we scattered David's ashes 15 years ago, where Margaret kissed me the night she told me, tell you the cancer was back and we didn't have as much time as we thought. This ground was sacred, and the boy I'd loved like my own was apparently measuring how many feet of water it would take to hold me under. Jennifer Marchand touched my arm. Just once. Light, like she was afraid I'd shatter. I'm sorry, she said. I know what he means to you. You don't know the half of it. I looked at her, then really looked. Under the ponytail and the hoodie and the fake smile she'd been wearing all weekend, I saw exhaustion and something that might have been pity, or worse, recognition. She knew exactly what it felt like to realize the person you thought you knew never existed at all. Headlights swept across the water as someone pulled into the driveway up the hill. Patricia's SUV, more family, more witnesses. More people Tyler could charm while he decided the easiest way to kill me. I took one step back toward the cottage, then another. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Tomorrow morning, I said, voice rough, I'm telling him I want my lawyer to review the contract one last time. She nodded once. Good. That buys us at least 48 hours. And then we pray he gets impatient. The loons cried again, 3 long notes that hung in the air like a verdict. I looked out at the black water, at the place where the sky used to meet the lake, and now there was only darkness. Somewhere in that cottage was the kid I'd promised my dead brother I'd look after. And somewhere in that same cottage was a stranger, wearing his face, deciding whether tonight was the night he became a murderer. I started walking back. Behind me, Jennifer Marchand whispered something I almost didn't catch. It sounded like, I'm sorry it has to be you. But the wind took it, and the loons laughed, and by the time I reached the porch light, I wasn't sure I'd heard anything at all, only that the weekend had just begun. And $38 million had never felt so much like blood money. I walked off that dock and straight into the past the way you do, when the present becomes unbearable. Every step up the hill toward the cottage, lights dragged me backward, 23 years backward, until I wasn't 63 anymore. I was 40 broke and sitting in a freezing basement in Barrie with a second-hand server humming beside a space heater in a dream no banker would touch. That was the real beginning. The dot-com bubble was still inflating, and everyone thought the internet would make us all rich overnight. I thought so too until I realized most people building websites had no idea how to keep the wolves out once the money started flowing. I saw the gap cybersecurity before the word was sexy. I named the company Sentinel Forge because it sounded strong, and because Margaret laughed and said it made me sound like a knight instead of a nerd. Margaret. God, just thinking her name still knocks the wind out of me. She was the one who worked double shifts as a nurse so I could buy ramen and Red Bull while I coded until my eyes bled. She was the one who, when the first real check came in 20 grand from a regional bank that had just been hacked, danced around our tiny kitchen in sock feet, screaming, we're not going to lose the house like we'd won the lottery. We lost the house anyway in 2008, not to foreclosure, to her cancer. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We clawed through the crash of 2000 through 2008 when half our clients vanished overnight, through every recession and ransomware wave and zero-day panic the world threw at us. Margaret kept the books, kept me human, kept telling me, build something that matters, Tom, not just something that pays. And somehow, impossibly, we did. Sentinel Forge grew from 2 people in a basement to 400 employees' offices in Toronto, Austin, London. We stopped nation-state attacks most people never even heard about. Governments quietly thanked us. Competitors hated us. I got invited to Davos and pretended I belonged there. And through every milestone, every late-night war room, every time I wanted to sell and walk away, Margaret was the voice in my ear. One more year, love, just one more. Then came the lump she tried to hide for 3 months because she didn't want to distract me during a big government bid. 18 months later, she was gone. I closed the deal with the Toronto conglomerate exactly 2 years to the day after her funeral. I remember standing in the boardroom, pen in hand, staring at the $38 million term sheet and feeling nothing. The CFO kept saying, Tom, this is the dream. I kept thinking, she never got to see it. I signed anyway, because she would have kicked my ass if I hadn't, and because there was someone else I still had to take care of, Tyler. My brother David died when Tyler was 7, construction accident. Scaffold collapsed. Cheap safety gear, cheaper contractor, no one held accountable. I was 39, childless, suddenly handed a grieving little boy who looked exactly like the brother I'd lost. I promised David's memory 2 things that day in the cemetery, rain soaking through my suit while Tyler clung to my leg. I would never let the world break that kid the way it broke us. I would make sure he never had to fight for scraps the way David and I did growing up. I kept those promises too hard. University paid, first car paid. When he said he didn't want to climb the corporate ladder at Sentinel Forge, that he wanted to be an entrepreneur like me, I didn't just cheer. I wrote a check. 50 grand seed money, no strings except. Make me proud, kid. He did for a while. There were victories I bragged about at Christmas dinners. The app that got into Y Combinator, even though it folded 6 months later. The AI startup that raised $1 million before the lead investor sued for fraud. The crypto thing, that wasn't his fault. The market crashed. Every time something burned down, Tyler had that same sheepish smile and those same words, I'll get the next one. Uncle Tom, this time I've learned, and every time I believed him. Because when he was 10 and woke up screaming from nightmares about his dad falling, I was the one who carried him to the couch and let him sleep on my chest until morning. Because when he was 15 and the kids at school called him the orphan charity case, I flew up to Waterloo and sat in the principal's office until they expelled the ringleader. Because when he was 23 and cried in my car after his first real girlfriend dumped him, said, you're the only father I've got left, I felt 10 feet tall and completely foolishly immortal. Love makes you stupid. Money makes you stupider. I see that now. I didn't see it when I invited the whole family up to the cottage the weekend the sale closed. I told myself it was to celebrate. Truth was, I couldn't stand the idea of being alone in the city with all that money and no Margaret to share it with. So I brought them all. My sister Patricia and her husband Ron, their kids, and Tyler with his new girlfriend I'd never met in person. I wanted noise, laughter, the smell of barbecue and the sound of loons and the feeling that the house was still alive again. Instead, I got a death sentence whispered on my own dock. As I climbed the hill, now boots crunching on pine needles, the memories kept slamming into me like waves. Tyler at 12, standing right here on this path, holding the urn with his father's ashes, asking me if the lake would keep Dad safe. Tyler at 19, drunk on cheap wine the night he graduated, hugging me so hard my ribs creaked, whispering, I'm going to make you proud one day, I swear, Tyler. At 29, 2 years ago, sitting beside Margaret's hospital bed, holding her hand, while she faded, promising her he'd look after me when she was gone. She'd looked at him with those clear gray eyes that always saw straight through people and said, "Take care of each other." I thought that was a blessing. Turns out it was a warning. I reached the porch. The screen door creaked the same way it had since 1980. Inside, laughter spilled out warm and bright and completely fake now that I knew what I knew. Tyler was at the stove flipping steaks, sleeves rolled up, looking every inch the golden boy. He glanced up and grinned. "There he is, thought you and Jen got eaten by bears, just like that. Easy, familiar. The same voice that used to beg for one more story, one more marshmallow, one more chance." I forced a smile that felt like it cracked my face in half. "Needed some air," I said. "Big day?" The biggest, he agreed, lifting his beer in salute. "Tomorrow we become partners, huh? You and me against the world, just like you and Dad always talked about." You and Dad. He used to say that when he was little, "When I grow up, I'm going to be just like you and Dad." David would have laughed and ruffled his hair and told him, "Kid, aim higher." David would have seen through him years ago. I would have too, if grief hadn't made me so desperate to keep the last piece of my brother alive. I looked at Tyler now, really looked, and for the first time I saw the calculation behind the smile. The way his eyes flicked to my left hand still holding the phone with the bank notification glowing on the screen. The way he angled his body between me and the bourbon bottle on the counter label turned just so. Dark glass, fancy script, the perfect prop. I felt something inside me break, something that had been holding me upright for 2 decades. Finally give way. Not fear yet, something colder. Rage, not the screaming kind. The quiet, precise kind that used to scare the hell out of hackers who thought they'd beaten our systems. The kind that let me sit across from venture capitalists who wanted to steal my company and smile while I took it apart piece by piece. Tyler had weaponized my love. He had taken every bedtime story, every tuition check, every hug at a funeral, every "I'm proud of you," and twisted them into rope to hang me with. And the worst part, the very worst part, for one heartbeat on that porch, looking at the boss I'd promised my dead brother I'd protect, I hated him. Hated him so cleanly, it felt like love in reverse. Then the feeling flipped again, grief so sharp I almost doubled over. Because the kid was still in there somewhere, wasn't he? The one who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during long drives. The one who cried when we buried Margaret because now you're all alone. Or maybe that kid had never existed. Maybe he'd been performing since the day they lowered his father into the ground, waiting for the patient, monstrous patience of a predator who knows the herd will feed him eventually if he just waits long enough. I didn't know which truth was worse. I only knew that tomorrow morning I was supposed to sign my life away literally, and that the bottle on the counter might already be laced with whatever untraceable thing he'd Googled in the dark. Patricia bustled over, oblivious, pressing a cold beer into my hand. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Tommy." "You have no idea, sis." I took the beer because it was sealed, because Tyler hadn't touched it, and I held it without drinking. Tyler watched me over the rim of his own bottle, eyes bright, expectant, waiting for me to toast to family, waiting for me to drink. I lifted the bottle in his direction, slow, deliberate. "To tomorrow," I said. His smile widened, perfect white teeth in the warm light. "To tomorrow," he echoed. And in that moment, with the loons crying outside and the smell of steak and betrayal thick in the air, I understood something with absolute clarity. One of us was not going to survive this weekend. And for the first time in my life, I was determined it wasn't going to be me. I followed her into the dark like a man walking to his own execution. Except I wasn't sure yet who was holding the gun. The trail was narrow route, slick with evening dew, the lake breathing cold mist against my left cheek. Every step took us farther from the cottage lights, until the only illumination was the last bruised purple smear of sky and the occasional silver flash of water between the pines. The loons had gone quiet, as if they too were holding their breath. Jennifer Marchand no longer pretending to be soft city girl. Jennifer Morton moved like someone trained to disappear. Silent boot shoulders, loose eyes scanning the tree line the way I used to scan network traffic for anomalies. I hated how competent she looked. I hated that I needed her competence. "Keep walking," she murmured. "Sound carries over water. We need distance." Distance. Funny word. I'd spent 24 years trying to close every inch of distance between me and Tyler, and now I was praying for miles. We rounded a bend where the trail pinched between granite outcrop and lake, the cottage completely hidden now. Only then did she stop back against a boulder, arms folded tight like she was holding herself together. 6 months ago, she began voice low, precise, Tyler David. Fitzgerald, age 31, applied for venture capital through a Toronto angel group. I was seconding her OSC. The deck was beautiful AI-driven cybersecurity compliance. The Sentinel Forge killer. He actually wrote that in the footer, like a joke only he was in on. Projected revenue, 200 million in 3 years. The numbers were creative. She gave a short, humorless laugh. One of the investors got cold feet, ran a deeper background, found inconsistencies, filed a complaint. My unit caught the file. Small stuff, honestly. Probably would have ended with a cease trade order and a fine. But I'm stubborn. Stubborn. I filed the word away. Stubborn people get killed in stories like this. I started pulling threads, she continued. Quietly, and the deeper I went, the uglier it got. She pulled out her phone, thumbed to a password-protected folder, tilted the screen so only I could see. A grid of photos and corporation documents, bank transfers, tear-streaked investors in coffee shops. 3 prior companies, she said. All followed the same pattern. She swiped. 2017 Ottawa, startup called Chainlock. Raised $420,000 from friends, family, one retired dentist who refinanced his house. Tyler paid himself $140K salary, expensed a leased Porsche, then folded the company 18 months later, citing market conditions. Dentist lost everything. Tyler walked with clean hands, bankruptcy protection. Swipe. 2020 Vancouver. Something called Privy C. Crypto privacy wallet. Raised $900K in a safety. Nephew. Paid himself $200K through launch parties at Formula One races, then poof. Regulatory uncertainty. Investors left holding worthless tokens. Tyler started a new company 6 weeks later. Swipe. 2022, right here in Toronto. An AI fraud detection tool ironically named Watchtower. Raised 1.8 million. Paid himself 310K, bought a condo in Yorkville with the company credit card, then declared insolvency the day the auditor showed up. Every single time he was the last man standing with cash in his pocket and a sob story about how the market betrayed him. I felt the cold seep through my jacket into my bones. 50 grand, that's all I ever gave him. I thought I was being cautious. She locked the phone, slid it away. He's textbook affinity fraud, Tom. He chooses marks who already love him. High school friends' parents, university mentors, church groups his mom used to take him to. And you. She let that land. I tasted metal, rage, or blood, I wasn't sure. 4 victims, I can prove, she said. Total loss is just under 3 million. Probably more I haven't found yet. But here's the part that turned my stomach. She stepped closer, voice dropping to almost to nothing. Every single one of them still defends him. Still says Tyler's a good kid, he just made bad choices, he'll pay me back when the next thing hits. He doesn't just take their money, he takes their forgiveness in advance. That's how good he is. I closed my eyes. I could still see 7-year-old Tyler on the day of David's funeral, standing in the rain in a suit 2 sizes too big, clutching a single white rose, asking me if his dad was cold underground. I had lied and told him no. Jennifer kept talking, relentless. When the Watchtower file landed on my desk, I requested undercover authorization. 8 months ago, I met Tyler at a startup mixer in Liberty Village. He love-bombed me in 48 hours, flowers, private jets to Montreal. For dinner, told me on date 3, I was the first woman who really understood him. By week 6, I was living in his condo, had the Wi-Fi password, and was mirroring his laptop every night. She gave a brittle smile. Romance is a hell of a skeleton key. I wanted to throw up. She went on, the plan was simple, get evidence of intent to defraud on the new raise flip. The witnesses shut him down before he hurt anyone else. But then he started talking about you, nonstop. Uncle Tom this, Uncle Tom that. How you were selling Sentinel Forge for life-changing money. How you trusted him completely. How you were going to make him a full partner in the new consulting firm. 19 million reasons to keep you breathing until the ink dried then. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I found my voice. You said he's escalated. She nodded once. 3 weeks ago, he created an encrypted folder labeled Cottage Weekend. Inside articles on carbon monoxide fatalities in older cottages. Forum threads about dosing schedules for zolpidem versus heart medication interactions. A spreadsheet titled Timeline with your name in cell A1 and dates running exactly 1 year from the partnership signing. And my personal favorite, a draft email to an offshore insurance broker asking whether a new $1 million keyman policy on a silent partner would pay out on accidental drowning if the insured had trace amounts of alcohol and prescription sleep aids in their system. She let me absorb that. Then 10 days ago, he changed the beneficiary clause in the draft partnership agreement. I watched him do it at 3:14 a.m. while pretending to sleep. One keystroke. 50% becomes 100 if you die within 365 days. He even added a little smiley emoji in the revision notes. I staggered back until the granite bit into my spine. Every memory of Tyler flickered past like corrupted film frames. Tyler at 16 helping me carry Margaret's oxygen tank up these same cottage steps when the cancer spread to her lungs. Tyler at Margaret's bedside, holding her hand while she whispered, "Don't let him be alone, Ty." Tyler last Christmas, eyes shining, saying, "You're the only father I've ever really had." All of it rehearsed, all of it weaponized. I felt something inside me rupture, a silent, catastrophic breach. Not heartbreak, something colder. The death of faith itself. My voice came out gravel. "Why didn't you pull me aside the second you arrived today? Because I didn't know if you'd believe me," she said simply. "Or worse, if you'd confront him and tip him off." Men like Tyler, when cornered early, they run. New name, new province, new marks. I needed him to feel safe enough to move. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw cracks in her armor too. "I've been living with him for 8 months, Tom. I've let him touch me. I've listened to him cry about his dead dad while he was calculating how much your dead body was worth. Every day I had to remind myself he's a suspect, not a boyfriend, because if I slipped for 1 second," her voice cracked. "Just once. I almost called the whole thing off last week," she admitted, "when he booked this weekend and started packing the bourbon. But then I thought if I back out now, the next mark might not have an undercover cop sleeping in their guest room." She met my eyes, fierce suddenly. "I'm not letting there be a next mark." Something shifted between us in that moment. Not trust yet. Too soon for that, but recognition. Two people who had both thought they were saving the same kid, only to discover he'd been hunting us all along. I dragged a hand over my face. It came away wet. I hadn't realized I was crying. "Tell me the rest," I said. She did. How Tyler had quietly taken out a $2 million life insurance policy in me 6 months ago, listing his new company as beneficiary for keyman coverage. How the premium was paid from the startup account that was supposed to be dormant. How he'd researched cottage propane systems, asked the local hardware store in Bracebridge about anonymous CO detectors that could be disabled remotely. How he'd ordered a weighted dry bag online, the kind divers use, perfect for keeping a body down until it's too late to matter. Each detail was a fresh knife. And the worst one, the one that made the world tilt, 2 nights ago, while I was still in Toronto signing final papers. Tyler had stood on this very shoreline, phone to his ear, laughing with someone named Alex, his old watchtower partner, saying, "Once the money clears, it's just one old man and a big lake. Nature does the rest." She played me the recording. Tyler's voice light amused, the same voice that once begged for ghost stories by campfire. "Yeah, man, cliffs are sharp. Water's deep. Dude's 63 and drinks like a fish when he's celebrating. Worst case, we help him slip. Best case, he does it himself and we just watch." A pause, then Tyler laughing again. "Either way, Friday the 13th becomes my lucky day." Friday the 13th. Tomorrow, I doubled over, hands on my knees, retching into the pine needles. Nothing came up but bile and 24 years of misplaced love. Jennifer crouched beside me, hand hovering, not quite touching. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I've never hated my job more than I do right now." I straightened slowly. The stars were out now, cold and indifferent. "So what happens now?" I asked. She stood. "You do not sign tomorrow. You tell him you want your lawyer to review one last time. You act normal. You drink nothing he gives you. You stay in crowded rooms. And you let me keep the wire running. Wire? She lifted her hoodie just enough to show the tiny recorder taped beneath her ribs. Legal for one-party consent in Ontario, she said. Every word he says this weekend goes straight to the RCMP fraud squad. I laughed in a sound like breaking glass. You want to use me as bait. I want to keep you alive, she corrected. There's a difference, Diemno. The wind came up off the lake sharp with coming autumn. Somewhere far away, a loon finally called again, 3 descending notes that sounded exactly like a question no one would ever answer. I looked back toward the cottage. A silhouette moved across the lit window. Tyler carrying plates to the table humming. I could still abort this. Call the whole thing off, confront him tonight. Watch him cry and promise it was all a misunderstanding. Watch him talk me into signing anyway because I'd spent my whole life teaching him that love means second chances. Or I could play the long game. I thought of Margaret in her final days, skin translucent, eyes still sharp, whispering, "Don't let him take your kindness for weakness, Tom. That's how they win." I wiped my face with my sleeve. Tomorrow morning, I said I'd tell him I need 48 hours for due diligence. I tell him Margaret always made me promise to have lawyers read everything twice. Jennifer exhaled shaky with relief. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "Thank me when he's in handcuffs and I'm still breathing." We started back. Halfway up the trail, she stopped again. "There's one more thing." Of course there was. He's not working alone. Alex is coming Tuesday night after Patricia and Ron leave. They have a plan B if you won't sign, they force the issue. I haven't been able to identify Alex's last name yet, but the texts are ugly. She handed me her phone again. A screenshot. Tyler plan B, still good. Alex Cliffs or the propane heater? Your call. Tyler propane's cleaner, but water's more poetic. Alex. Either way, we split 60-40 after expenses. Tyler 70-30 or I do it myself. Alex greedy. Fuck. Fine. 65-35. See you Tuesday. I stared at the words until they blurred. Tuesday, the day after tomorrow. I handed the phone back. Tell your RCMP friends I said voice steady for the first time all night. They'd better be ready. Because if they're not, I will be. Jennifer studied me for a long moment. You're not what I expected, she said. Yeah. What did you expect? A rich old man ready to cry and call his lawyer? I gave her the ghost of a smile. I am a rich old man, but I built my company finding monsters in the dark. Turns out the worst one was sleeping in my guest room. I started walking again. Behind me, she whispered, almost too soft to hear, "I really am sorry it's him." I didn't answer, because sorry wasn't going to bring back the boy I thought I knew. And revenge, well, revenge was starting to feel like the only language Tyler had left me fluent in. The cottage lights grew brighter with every step. Inside, someone had put on music. Old Springsteen, Tyler's favorite. He was singing along off-key, happy, waiting for me to come in and toast to family. I paused at the porch steps, took one deep breath of pine and may and impending war, and walked inside to smile at my murderer. I walked back into the cottage, smiling the way you smile at a loaded gun pointed at your chest. The screen door slapped shut behind me. Springsteen was still singing about glory days, and the smell of grilled steak and garlic butter wrapped around me like a lie. Everyone was laughing, passing plates, clinking bottles. Normal, perfect, lethal. Tyler spotted me first. "Hey, there's the man of the hour." He held up the bourbon bottle like a trophy. Dark glass, gold foil, some small batch label I didn't recognize. "I was about to come hunt you down." "First pour's yours, partner." Partner. The word tasted like rust in my mouth. I lifted both hands, fake regretful. Gotta pace myself tonight. Big day tomorrow. Remember? Don't want to be hungover when we're signing our names on $19 million. A flicker, just a heartbeat, crossed his face. Disappointment calculation. Then the grin was back wider. Fair enough. More for me. He poured 2 fingers into a crystal glass anyway and set it on the sideboard right where my eye would land every time I walked past. A little amber lighthouse guiding me to the rocks. Dinner was torture disguised as family reunion. I sat at the head of the table the way I always had, Margaret's empty chair to my right like a missing limb. Tyler took the seat opposite the one he'd claimed since he was tall enough to see over the tablecloth. He kept filling my water glass, kept asking if I wanted another beer, kept watching my hands. Every gesture that used to feel like love now felt like reconnaissance. Ron told the same golf joke he'd told for 15 years. Patricia talked about her book club. The kids FaceTime from university shouting congratulations about the sale. I laughed in all the right places, nodded chewed steak I couldn't taste and counted heartbeats. Jennifer Martian sat beside Tyler quiet, picking at her salad eyes, flicking to me every few seconds, like she was afraid I'd drop dead in my potatoes. At one point, Tyler reached over and squeezed her knee under the table. Affectionate, possessive. She let him. I watched her fingers tighten around her fork until the knuckles went white. I wondered how many nights she'd lain beside him in the dark, listening to him breathe, knowing he was dreaming about my corpse. After dessert, Patricia and Ron declared themselves old and boring and disappeared upstairs. Their footsteps creaked overhead, then silence. Tyler stretched cat lazy. Bonfire like old times. The words hit me like a slap. Old times, when he was 15 and we roasted marshmallows until 2 a.m., and he told me he wanted to be just like me when he grew up. I almost said no, almost said I was tired, but Jennifer gave me the tiniest shake of her head. Stay in public. Stay visible. Sure, I said. Let's do it. We built the fire together the way we always had me, stacking logs, him gathering kindling. Muscle memory, ritual, except now every time his back was turned, I watched for the flash of a knife, the swing of a shovel, anything. He hummed while he worked, happy, excited. I wanted to wrap my hands around his throat and scream, why? Instead, I fed the fire and smiled. Jennifer sat in one of the Muskoka chairs, knees drawn up, pretending to scroll her phone. I knew she was recording. Tyler handed me a fresh beer crown cap still on safety seal intact. I cracked it myself, drank half in one pull, just to feel something cold go down. We talked about nothing and everything, the sale, the new company, how proud Dad would have been. Tyler's voice cracked beautifully on the word Dad part. Oscar-worthy. I waited for him to bring up the contract. He didn't. He was patient. He could wait until morning. Around 11:30, Jennifer stood stretched, said she was freezing and going in for a sweater. Tyler watched her go, something speculative in his eyes. The second she was out of earshot, he scooted his chair closer. Hey, can I ask you something, Nan? To man, here it came. Sure, he poked the fire sparks exploding upward like dying stars. Jen, you think she's, I don't know, off? My pulse spiked. Off how? He gave an awkward laugh. Probably just me being paranoid. New relationship stuff. But sometimes I feel like she's hiding something. I called her office once, surprised her with lunch. They said no, Jennifer Morton works there. She said it was a mix-up with departments, but he shrugged, perfect, vulnerable nephew face. I don't want to look stupid, but my gut's bugging me. I stared at him across the flames. He was testing me, testing whether I'd heard anything on the dock, testing whether I suspected, trying to see if I'd warned him about the undercover cop in his bed. I took a slow sip of beer. Women lie about dumb stuff sometimes, I said. Job titles age how many people they've slept with. Doesn't mean they're plotting murder. I let the word murder hang there soft as smoke. His eyes flicked to mine, sharp, searching, then relaxed. He laughed, relieved. Yeah, you're probably right. Just nerves. Jennifer came back with a cardigan, sat again. Tyler shifted gears instantly back to nostalgic stories, marshmallows, laughter. I watched the performance and marveled at how flawless it was. We killed the fire just after midnight. Tyler doused the embers, slung an arm around Jennifer's shoulders, told me not to stay up too late. Big day tomorrow, partner. They disappeared into the guest room on the main floor. Door closed, light clicked off. I stood in the sudden silence, heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then I did exactly what any rational man would do after learning his nephew wants him dead. I went to my bedroom, filled the water pitcher from the bathroom tap, like always set it on the nightstand and tried to sleep. I lasted maybe 40 minutes. Every creak of the cottage was a footstep. Every sigh of wind was Tyler turning the propane valve outside. Every loon cry was Margaret begging me to run. At 1:47 a.m. and I sat bolt upright, sweat-soaked. I stared at the pitcher on the nightstand. Moonlight through the window turned the water silver. He'd been alone in the kitchen while Jennifer and I were on the dock. He'd had plenty of time. I picked up my phone instead. A single text from an unknown number, Jennifer using a burner. Don't drink the water in your room. I'm testing it tomorrow with my kid. Stay alert. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I carried the pitcher to the bathroom, poured it down the sink, watched it swirl away like the last 24 years of my life. Then I flushed twice, ran the tap 5 minutes, scrubbed the sink with bleach I found under the counter. I dragged the heavy cedar chair from the reading nook and wedged it under the bedroom doorknob. Old school deadbolt. I sat in the dark with my back to the wall, loaded shotgun from the gun safe in my closet across my lap, unloaded, because I wasn't ready to become a headline yet, but the wait felt good. And I waited. 11 a.m. Soft footsteps in the hallway, bare feet on hardwood, stopped outside my door. I held my breath. The doorknob turned, slow testing. Once, twice, then nothing. Pictured Tyler on the other side, listening, wondering why the door wouldn't open, wondering if I was already unconscious. I waited for the smell of propane, for the hiss of wild, for the world to go soft at the edges. Nothing. Footsteps retreated. I didn't sleep again. 03 a.m., another text from Jennifer. He just asked me if I thought you seemed off tonight. I played dumb. He's pacing. Be careful in the morning. 27 a.m. I heard the guest room door open again. Muffled voices, Tyler's low and urgent, Jennifer's calm, placating. Strained to hear words. Couldn't. 12 a.m. The cottage was silent, but I swear I felt eyes on me through the walls. I thought about Margaret. How she always said I trusted systems more than people. How she'd look at Tyler sometimes just a second too long, like she saw something I refused to. I whispered into the dark. You were right, love. You were always right. No answer except the tick of the baseboard heater and my own heartbeat counting down. At 5:46 a.m. the sky outside started turning the color of a bruise. I hadn't closed my eyes once. I sat there until the first real light crept through the window, shotgun across my knees, and realized something with perfect, crystalline clarity. I wasn't afraid of dying anymore. I was afraid of living long enough to watch Tyler cry at my funeral and know every tear was counterfeit. I was afraid that if I survived this weekend, I would still have to bury the boy I loved twice, once when he turned into a monster and again when the world finally saw it. But most of all, I was afraid that when the moment came, when it was his life or mine, I wouldn't be able to pull the trigger. Because some part of me, the part that carried him on my shoulders when he was 7, the part that paid for his braces and his tuition and his broken dreams, that part was still whispering, he's family. He's all you have left of David. Maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe it's not too late. And the new part, the part forged in the fire of Jennifer's screenshots and poisoned water, answered back, he's going to kill you tomorrow night. And he's going to smile while he does it. I sat in the gray half-light and listened to those two voices fight inside my skull until the smell of coffee finally drifted under the door. Morning had arrived. The game clock had started, and somewhere down the hall my murderer was making pancakes. I stood up, legs numb, heart ice cold, and went to meet him with a smile I'd practiced in the mirror 1,000 times for boardrooms full of sharks. Only this time the shark was wearing my nephew's face. I opened the bedroom door. Showtime. The sun came up angry. A hard white coin hammered onto the lake, no warmth in it at all. I walked into the kitchen like a man stepping onto a stage where the audience already knows the ending. Tyler was at the stove, back to me, flipping pancakes with the same easy rhythm he'd had since he was 12 and decided breakfast was his love language. Bacon popped and hissed. Coffee gurgled. The radio played low, some old tragically hip song about escaping north. He looked over his shoulder and flashed the sunrise smile that used to make everything right in my world. Morning, Uncle Tom. Thought you might sleep in after all that fresh air. He slid a pancake onto a stack like nothing in the universe was wrong. Figured I'd make your favorite. Big day, right? Big day. I stood there in the doorway, feeling the weight of the night clinging to me like damp clothes. My eyes were gritty, my throat raw from not speaking for 6 hours. The shotgun was backed in the safe, but I could still feel its cold steel printed across my thighs. Patricia and Ron were already at the table, rumpled and happy, arguing over who had slept through the loons. Jennifer sat opposite them, hair still wet from the shower, hands wrapped around a mug, like it was the only solid thing left on earth. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. The air between us crackled. I forced my feet forward, pulled out. My chair sat. Smells amazing, Ty, I said. My voice sounded like gravel dragged over glass. He beamed, slid a plate in front of me. 3 perfect pancakes, butter melting into the craters. Bacon arranged like a smile. A glass of orange juice already poured. Eat up, he said. Gotta keep your strength for signing our names in history. There it was, the first move on the board. I picked up my fork, set it down again. Actually, I said calm, conversational. I'm gonna need to push the signing back a day or two. Silence detonated across the table. Tyler's spatula froze midair. A single drop of batter hung, then fell with a soft plop. Patricia frowned. Everything okay? Tommy fine, I said, smiling at her, smiling at Ron, smiling at the monster wearing my nephew's skin. Just want my lawyer to take one last look. 38 million is a lot of money. Don't want any surprises. Tyler turned slowly. The smile was still there, but it had slipped a millimeter like a mask losing its glue. Your lawyer, he repeated as if the word tasted strange. Margaret always made me swear, I said, letting her name hang in the air like incense. Any contract over $1 million, we sleep on it twice and let the suits earn their retainers. Call it superstition. I watched the calculation happen behind his eyes in real time. Tick, surprise, tick, reassessment, tick, new plan forming. He set the spatula down very carefully. We've been over that contract a dozen times, Uncle Tom. You said it was perfect. It is perfect, I lied smoothly. Just want a second set of eyes. 48 hours tops. Then we sign and pop champagne. The kitchen had gone so quiet I could hear the fridge hum. Ron cleared his throat. Smart play, Tom. That's exactly how you built the company. Due diligence. Patricia reached over and patted my hand. Your sister's proud of you right now, wherever she is. Tyler's jaw flexed. Once. He turned back to the stove, flipped a pancake that didn't need flipping. Sure, he said, voice light, almost convincing. Whatever makes you comfortable. But his shoulders were too tight, his movements too precise. A robot trying to imitate a human who wasn't panicking. Jennifer finally looked up. Our eyes met for half a second. Relief microscopic flashed across her face and vanished. Tyler slid another plate onto the table for himself and sat directly across from me. He cut his pancake into perfect squares, speared one chewed slowly. So he said, conversational, who's the lawyer, Goldstein? I can courier the docs today, maybe speed things up. Already emailed him last night, I lied again. He's got a full plate. Wednesday morning latest. Wednesday. 3 extra days of life I just bought with a single sentence. Tyler's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Wednesday, he echoed. Something cold and lethal moved behind his eyes. I saw it clear as day the moment he realized the timeline had cracked open and all his careful plans were spilling out. He recovered fast. No problem, he said, smiling with all his teeth. Gives us more time to celebrate up here, right? Fish drink, tell lies about the old days. He raised his orange juice in a mock toast. I raised mine back, didn't drink. Patricia started chattering about maybe driving into Bracebridge for lunch. Ron made a joke about needing new dock boards, and the moment passed. But the temperature in the room had changed. You could feel it on your skin like walking from sunlight into a walk-in freezer. Tyler finished his pancakes in 4 large bites, stood abruptly. Gonna make some calls, he said. Potential client's been blowing up my phone. He ruffled Jennifer's hair as he passed, possessive claiming, disappeared down the hall toward the guest room. The door shut with a soft final click. Jennifer waited 10 seconds, then tilted her head toward the deck. I followed. Outside, the morning was brutally bright. The lake glared like polished steel. She closed the sliding door behind us and leaned in, voice barely a breath. Water tested positive for zolpidem. High dose, enough to knock you out for 8 to 10 hours. He was in the hallway twice last night. I heard him try your door. I felt the world tilt. He really did it, I whispered. He really drugged me. She nodded once, and that smile just now. He's recalculating. We may be bought 48 hours, but he's not going to wait politely. I gripped the railing. The wood was cold, really the only thing keeping me upright. What happens when he realizes I'm not drinking or signing anything? Her eyes were flat cop eyes. Then he moves to plan B, and plan B doesn't need your signature. She pulled out her phone, showed me a new screenshot. Text, time-stamped, 3:14 a.m. Tyler uncle wants lawyer review. Delay till wed. Alex, fuck that. We move tomorrow night after the aunt and uncle leave. Tyler, too many people still here. Alex, then make them leave. I'll be there Monday 10 p.m. Team, bring the weighted bag. Tyler water or propane. Alex water's cleaner. Looks like rich drunk old man fell in. Tragic. Tyler, I'll get him down to the dock. I stared at the words until they burned. Monday night. Tomorrow, Jennifer closed the screen. I've already pinged Morrison at the RCMP. She wants you to keep stalling. They're putting a team together. But Tom, they need him to cross the line. An actual attempt. Otherwise, it's just ugly texts and a dodgy clause. Not enough for murder conspiracy. She looked at me straight. They're asking you to be bait. I laughed then, a short, ugly sound that startled a jay out of the pines. Story of my weekend. I looked out at the lake at the dock where I taught Tyler to skip stones, where I scattered my brother's ashes, where Margaret and I got engaged under a meteor shower. Tomorrow night, that same dock might be where I died, or where Tyler did. I felt the rage rise again, pure and clean, washing away the last scraps of guilt. Let him come, I said. Jennifer studied me for a long moment. You're different than you were yesterday, she said quietly. Yesterday, I still had a nephew, I answered. Today, I have a predator wearing his face. I turned back to the cottage. Through the glass, I could see Tyler on the phone in the guest room, pacing, gesturing mouth, moving fast. Planning. I met my own reflection in the window's 63 years old eyes like burnt holes in a blanket, and spoke to the man I used to be. You raised him to be clever, I said. Now let's see how clever he really is when the Mark knows every trick in the book. Jennifer touched my arm, just once. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be, I said. Be ready, because the pancakes were cold now. The coffee was bitter, and the contract was never getting signed. The game had moved past paper. It was down to who blinked first. And I had spent 23 years teaching corporations how to stare down killers in the dark. My nephew was about to learn the family business the hard way. I opened the sliding door and walked back inside to smile at the boy who wanted me dead, and for the first time all weekend, the smile reached my eyes. Your move, Tyler. The rest of that morning passed like the slow fuse on a stick of dynamite. Patricia and Ron decided the tension was city stress and took themselves off to Gravenhurst for antique shopping. Their SUV crunched down the gravel drive and disappeared, leaving only four of us in a cottage that suddenly felt the size of a coffin. Tyler stayed in the guest room on calls. Jennifer disappeared to shower again. I sat on the deck with a mug of coffee. I never drank, staring at the dock and counting hours until nightfall tomorrow. Every loon call sounded like a countdown. Around 11:30, the sliding door whispered open behind me. Jennifer stepped out, hoodie zipped to her chin, even though the sun was high now. She carried 2 bottles of water, factory sealed, and handed me one without a word. We moved to the far corner of the deck, out of any possible sightline from the guest room window. She didn't waste time. I lifted his phone while he was in the bathroom, she said, voice barely louder than the wind in the pines. He left it charging on the dresser. Face ID was already open. He trusts me that much. She pulled her own phone from her pocket, opened a secure photo album, and started swiping. The first screenshot stopped my heart. Tyler to Alex, 9:47 a.m., less than an hour ago. Uncle lawyering up. Stall till wed. We can't wait that long. Alex told you the old man would get paranoid once the money hit Tyler. He's not paranoid. He's just slow. Alex, slow gets people drowned. Tyler tomorrow night. Still good, Alex. I'll be there 10 p.m. Aunt/uncle gone by then. Tyler working on it. Alex, bring the chain and the dive weights. Lake's deep enough past the boathouse. Tyler, cliff's better. Rock plus water, no questions. Alex, your call. Either way, we toast with his bourbon after Tyler 65-35. Remember, Alex, greedy little shit. Fine. I read it twice, 3 times. Each pass carved the words deeper into me. Jennifer swiped again. Another thread. Same contact dated last week. Tyler need a new keyman policy. $5 million on Uncle Tom. Accidental only. Alex, You sure he'll sign the beneficiary over? Tyler, he'll sign. He still thinks I'm 12 and missing my daddy. Alex, and after Tyler, after he has a tragic fall, heart condition, plus alcohol, plus sleeping pills, Astul's natural causes. Alex, you're colder than I thought, Tyler. I learned from the best. You in or out? Alex, 35% is robbery. But yeah, I'm in. She kept swiping. More. Insurance quotes. A marine supply receipt for 60 polysolves of lead dye. But a Google Maps pin dropped on the deepest part of the lake directly off my cliff. A note in his reminders. Remove CO detector batteries Monday 8 p.m. Each image was a fresh wound. I felt my hands start to shake so badly the water bottle rattled against the railing. Jennifer closed the album. There's 42 screenshots, she said quietly. Enough to put him away for conspiracy tomorrow if the RCMP moves fast. But Morrison says Crown Counsel wants an overt act. It was an attempt. Otherwise, his lawyer will argue it's just two idiots texting dark fantasies. She looked at me, eyes flat and cop-tired. They want him to put hands on you, Tom. Or they want a recording of him saying it to your face. Anything less, and he walks with a front end and a slap. I laughed, then a short, ugly bark that startled a squirrel into the trees. Of course they do, I said. Everyone wants a front row seat to the old man's murder as long as it's on camera. She flinched. I told Morrison no, she said. I told her I'd pull you out right now, drive you to the detachment myself. But she says if we run, he disappears. New name, new province, new rich uncle. And next time there won't be an undercover girlfriend sleeping beside him. She swallowed hard. I hate this, she whispered. I hate that I'm asking you to stay in this house with him. I stared out at the lake. A loon dove surfaced 50 yards away, looked straight at me like it knew exactly how deep the water was. Show me the worst one, I said. She hesitated, then swiped to the last photo. A single voice memo, timestamped 2:14 a.m. last night while I sat in the dark with a shotgun across my lap. She pressed play, volume almost nothing. Tyler's voice sleepy, intimate, talking to Alex on speaker while Jennifer pretended to sleep inches away. He didn't drink the bourbon, and now he's lawyering up. I'm telling you, man, he suspects something. I can feel it. If he doesn't sign tomorrow, I swear to God I'll drag him off that dock myself. I've waited my whole fucking life for this money. I'm not letting some sentimental old bastard take it away because he suddenly grew a brain. A pause. Alex laughing softly in the background. Tyler again, lower, almost tender. He raised me, carried me on his shoulders after Dad died. Paid for everything. And tomorrow night, I'm going to watch him sink like a bag of rocks, and I'm going to feel nothing. That's how I know I'm finally free. The memo ended. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. I felt the last thread inside me snap, the one that had still been frantically trying to convince me it was all a misunderstanding, that Tyler was just scared that love could fix this. That thread burned away like fuse wire. Jennifer reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't, I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine anymore. Don't touch me right now. I walked to the railing, gripped it until the wood creaked. Every memory of Tyler flickered past in high definition. 7 years old, arms around my neck at David's graveside whispering, "Don't leave me too, Uncle Tom." 13. First time he beat me at chess, laughing so hard he fell off the chair. 25, crying in my driveway because another startup imploded and he didn't know how to tell me he'd lost my 50 grand. 31, standing beside Margaret's casket, promising he'd take care of me. Every single one of them poisoned now. I turned back to Jennifer. Give me the phone, I said. She hesitated. Tom, I'm not going to do anything stupid. I just need to see his face when he realizes the mark isn't playing anymore. She handed it over slowly. I opened the screenshots again, zoomed in on the dive weight receipt, the insurance quote, the voice memo thumbnail, his own smiling contact photo beside Alex's name. I stared at that smiling face until it blurred. Then I did something I hadn't done since the night Margaret died. I cried. Not pretty quiet tears, ugly shoulder-shaking sobs that tore out of me like I was vomiting 24 years of love and grief and wasted hope. Jennifer stood, frozen arms half raised, not knowing whether to hold me or give me space. I didn't care. I cried for the little boy who used to fall asleep on my chest during thunderstorms. I cried for the brother who never got to see what his son became. I cried for Margaret, who would have smelled the rot years ago and protected me. And I cried for the man I used to be, the one who believed family was the one system that could never be hacked. When it was over, I was empty, clean, cold. I wiped my face on my sleeve and handed the phone back. "Tell Morrison I'm in," I said. "All the way." Jennifer's eyes widened. "Tom, you don't have to." "I do," I cut her off, "because if I leave now, he gets to keep the story that he's the victim." Poor Tyler misunderstood genius screwed over by cautious old Uncle Tom one more time. I'm done letting him write the narrative. I looked toward the guest room window. The curtain twitched. He was watching. I smiled small, real, and sharp enough to cut. "Tomorrow night, I said we finish this on the dock. But this time, the old man knows every move before it's made." Jennifer started to speak, but the sliding door opened. Tyler stepped out, phone in one hand, two fresh beers in the other. "Hey, you two brooding out here without me." He grinned like the past 5 minutes had never happened. "Thought we could take the boat out, do some fishing before lunch." He offered me a beer. I took it, twisted the cap off myself, and clinked it against his. "To family," I said, holding his eyes. "To family," he echoed, smile never wavering. We both drank. Behind his back, Jennifer looked like she was going to be sick. I wasn't. For the first time since Jennifer whispered her warning on the dock, I felt something stronger than fear. Purpose. Tomorrow night, the lake would take one of us, and I was finally ready to make sure it wasn't me. Let the games begin. The afternoon crawled by in a haze of fake smiles and loaded silences. Tyler took the boat out alone. "Clear my head," he said, roaring across the lake like a man who still believed he owned the future. Jennifer disappeared into the guest room to nap. I sat on the porch with my phone in my lap and stared at the emergency contact I'd never thought I'd need. RCMP, Bracebridge Detachment. I'd driven past that building 1,000 times, gray brick, Canadian flags snapping in the wind, and always thought it belonged to someone else's story, not mine, never mine. I pressed call before the last shred of denial could stop me. The desk constable transferred me twice. Each hold music jingle felt like a nail in the coffin of the life I used to have. Finally, a woman came on the line, voice calm, Northern Ontario vowels soft around the edges. Detachment. "Constable Morrison, major crimes. How can I help you?" I closed my eyes. The lake wind pushed against my face like it was trying to shove the words back down my throat. "My name is Thomas Fitzgerald. I'm at my cottage on Lake Rousseau. I believe my nephew is planning to murder me tomorrow night for $19 million. Silence for one heartbeat. Then the professional mask dropped just enough for me to hear the human underneath. "Mr. Fitzgerald, Jennifer Marchand briefed us 2 weeks ago. We've been waiting for your call." The world tilted. Jennifer was real. Everything she'd told me was real. I exhaled a sound I didn't recognize, half laugh, half sob. "She said you'd need more," I managed. "We do," Morrison said gently. "We have the text, the insurance policy, the searches. Strong circumstantial case for fraud and conspiracy. But Crown wants an overt act. An attempt. Otherwise, he pleads to some white-collar slap and walks in 3 years to try again on the next lonely rich uncle." She paused, letting that sink in. "I know what I'm asking is insane, Mr. Fitzgerald." "Tom," I said automatically. "Call me Tom." "Tom." Her voice softened another degree. "Jennifer speaks very highly of you. She says you're the first Mark who didn't fold the second the money got close. She also says you love that boy like a son." Loved, past tense. The word cut deeper than any knife. "He was the closest thing I had to a son," I said. Turns out that was the point. Another silence, careful this time. "I have a son," Morrison said quietly. 17. "If someone ever, I don't know how you're still standing. I'm not," I told her. "I'm just too stubborn to lie down yet." She gave a soft huff that might have been a laugh or sympathy. "Here's what I can offer," she said, switching back to business. "My partner and I come up this afternoon in plain clothes. Unmarked SUV. We park out of Sightwire, the cottage night vision tactical backup on standby in Aurelia. You keep him talking, keep him here, keep him believing the money is still in play. When he and this Alex individual make their move tomorrow night, we take them before they lay a finger on you. Clean, recorded, airtight. I watched Tyler's boat far out on the lake, a white speck cutting a vicious wake. And if I say no, I asked, if I just get in my truck right now and drive away, then we arrest him on the fraud and conspiracy we already have. He makes bail by supper, disappears, resurfaces in 6 months as Tyler Thompson or Tyler Smith or whatever, finds another grieving widow with a fat check. Jennifer spent 8 months of her life in his bed for nothing, and you spend the rest of yours looking over your shoulder. She let that settle, or she said, you stay 24 more hours, let us end this the right way, and you never have to be afraid of the dark again. I closed my eyes, Margaret's voice clear as the day she said it in the cancer ward. Don't let him take your kindness for weakness, Tom. That's how they win. I opened my eyes. Send the wire instructions to Jennifer's burner, I said. I'll have the cottage ready. Morrison exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Thank you, Tom. You have no idea what this means. I do, actually, I said. It means I get to look my brother's son in the eye one last time and watch him realize the Mark learned every trick he ever taught him. I hung up before she could reply. Tyler's boat was heading back now, arrow straight for the dock. I stood up, walked inside, and started making fresh coffee like a man with nothing to hide. He came in 10 minutes later, hair wind-whipped, cheeks, flushed eyes bright, with the kind of energy only predators get when the hunt is close. Beautiful out there, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Hard, friendly. You should have come. Maybe tomorrow, I said, pouring him a mug. Black 2 sugars, exactly how he liked it since he was 14. He took it, leaned against the counter, studied me. You seem, different, he said. I met his gaze and smiled, the smile I used to give hostile takeover artists right before I crushed them. 38 million cleared, I said. Changes a man, his eyes flickered. Greed, suspicion, excitement all mixed. Yeah. He sipped the coffee. So we're still good for Wednesday, signing better than good. I lied. Lawyer already emailed back. Minor tweaks, nothing major. Wants to add a keyman clause for both of us. Fair's fair. I watched his pupils dilate at the phrase keyman clause. Both of us, he asked, careful, I nodded. 5 million on you, 5 on me. Accidental death, double indemnity. My treat. Family looks after family, right? The hook slid home so beautifully I almost felt bad. Almost. Tyler's grin spread slow and real, the first genuine expression I'd seen on him all weekend. That's generous, Uncle Tom. I lifted my mug in salute. Only the best for my partner. He clinked his mug against mine, eyes shining with triumph he thought was 24 hours away. I drank the coffee, real coffee, safe coffee, and tasted victory for the first time since Jennifer's whisper on the dock. Behind his back, Jennifer appeared in the hallway, silent, watching. She gave me one tiny nod. The trap was set. The cottage was wired. The lake was waiting. And tomorrow night, when Tyler led me down to that dock to fix the electrical or look at the stars or whatever lie he'd rehearsed, the RCMP would be in the trees, Jennifer would be recording, and I would finally get to say the words I'd been rehearsing in my head since the moment I heard his voice on that 2 a.m. memo. Checkmate, kid. Your move. I smiled at my murderer over the rim of my coffee and felt something inside me settle, cold hard. Unbreakable. David, wherever you are, forgive me. Margaret, wherever you are, watch this. Because the man who taught corporations how to hunt monsters in the dark was about to show his nephew what happens when the monster hunts back. Tomorrow night, the lake would decide who sank and who walked away. And for the first time in 48 hours, I knew exactly which one of us could hold his breath the longest. I set my empty mug in the sink. Want to grill steaks tonight? I asked Tyler. One last quiet dinner before the money changes everything. His answering grin was pure wolf. Sounds perfect, he said. Perfect. That was the word for it. Perfect. Monday. The day the lake would decide who got to keep breathing. I woke before the sun the way you do when you know the next sunset might be your last. The cottage was dead quiet except for the soft creak of old beams cooling in the September air. I lay there for a long time staring at the ceiling, listening for footsteps that never came. Tyler was still asleep, or pretending to be. I rose dressed in silence and walked down to the dock while the mist still clung to the water like a shroud. The boards were cold under my bare feet. I stood at the end, and looked straight down into the black 30 feet of Muskoka granite, dropping away into nothing. Tomorrow night, one way or another, this water would close over somebody's head. I whispered to the lake the way I used to whisper to Margaret when the chemo nights got too long. Give me the strength to finish this. The lake didn't answer, but a loon did 3 descending cries that sounded almost like laughter. I went back inside and started coffee. Normal, routine, the condemned man's last breakfast ritual. Patricia and Ron came down first, yawning hair wild from sleep. You're up early, Patricia said, kissing my cheek. Big money makes you restless. You have no idea. They never noticed the way my hand trembled when I poured her cup. Tyler appeared 20 minutes later, stretching in the doorway like a cat who'd spent the night sharpening claws. Morning, family, he sang. Smells like victory. He clapped Ron on the back, kissed Patricia's cheek, ruffled my hair the way he'd done since he was 9. Every touch felt like a brand. We ate pancakes again, more bacon, more forced laughter. Tyler kept checking his watch, subtle but not subtle enough. He wanted them gone. I wanted them gone too, but for very different reasons. At 10:47 a.m., Ron's phone buzzed. He frowned at the screen. Work emergency, he muttered. Some server meltdown downtown. They need me in the office tomorrow morning. Patricia groaned. We just got here. Ron shrugged, already reaching for his keys. City never sleeps, babe. We'll come back next weekend. Promise. Tyler's relief was a physical thing. Shoulders dropping, eyes brightening. I felt it too, but mine came with a cold, metallic taste. Hugs, goodbyes, promises to text when they got home. Their SUV rolled down the driveway at 11:26. The second the taillights vanished, Tyler turned to me with the grin of a man who thinks he just won the lottery. Looks like it's just us, Uncle Tom. You, me, and 19 million reasons to celebrate. He clapped me on the back again, harder this time. I smiled back and tasted blood where I'd bitten the inside of my cheek. Jennifer appeared in the hallway, hair in a messy bun, eyes red like she hadn't slept either. Guess I'll pack, she said softly. Tyler's arms snaked around her waist. Stay till tomorrow, babe. One more night. We'll take the boat out at sunset. Romantic, right? She let him kiss her temple. I watched her throat work as she swallowed revulsion. Sure, she said. One more night. By 1:15, the cottage was empty except for the 3 of us and the ghost we'd brought with us. Tyler disappeared to make arrangements. Jennifer locked herself in the bathroom with her burner phone. I walked every room like a general inspecting a battlefield. Living room sightlines, clear coffee table moved for camera angles. Kitchen knives counted and relocated to a locked drawer. Hallway loose floorboard marked with a tiny piece of tape, early warning if someone crept in the dark. I was wiring my own home for my own execution, and the absurdity almost made me laugh out loud. At 2:03, an unmarked gray SUV eased down the drive, slow no dust cloud. 2 plainclothes officers climbed out, Morrison and Kim. Morrison was taller than I expected, dark hair in a tight bun, eyes that had seen too many endings. Kim was younger, built like a linebacker, gentle voice. They moved like they belonged here. Neighbors borrowing a tool, nothing more. Inside handshakes were quick and quiet. Morrison's grip was firm. You holding up, barely, I admitted. She nodded like that was the right answer. We gathered in the kitchen. Jennifer laid out the floor plan she'd drawn from memory. Morrison produced tiny cameras the size of shirt buttons, wireless mics no bigger than pennies. They worked fast. 1 camera above the front door, 1 in the smoke detector over the kitchen island, 1 tucked into the spine of a book on the living room shelf aimed at the couch where Tyler loved to hold court. Mics in the lampshades under the coffee table, inside the fake rock by the barbecue. Kim ran fiber optic cable along the baseboards like Christmas lights from hell. While they worked, Morrison pulled me aside on the deck. Backup tactical team is staging in Port Carling, she said. 6 officers sniper overwatch from the ridge across the bay. Night vision suppressed rifles. If he so much as raises a hand, it's over. I looked at the ridge half a mile away, thick with pine, invisible. Perfect. And if he smells a trap, I asked, then we take him early on the fraud warrants. But Tom, if you want him, we get 1 shot at the murder conspiracy charge. After tonight, the evidence degrades. Texts get deleted. Alex Ghost's insurance policies get canceled. This is the window. She studied me. You still in? I thought of Tyler at 7 asleep on my chest the night his father died. I thought of the voice memo at 2 a.m. saying he'd feel nothing watching me sink. I looked her dead in the eye. Wire me up too, I said. I want every word he says tonight recorded straight from my heart. Morrison didn't blink. Done. They taped a mic under my shirt just left of my sternum. The wire was cold against my skin. Kim tested the feed. My heartbeat came through the laptop speaker fast but steady. Good strong signal, he said. We'll hear you breathing. Jennifer watched from the doorway, arms wrapped around herself like she might fly apart. Tyler's boat motor roared to life down at the dock. He was coming back. Morrison and Kim melted into the trees with their gear SUV already hidden behind the boathouse. Jennifer and I stood alone in the sudden silence. He'll want to get me down to the dock tonight, I said. He'll invent some excuse. Broken light, electrical short, whatever. She nodded. I heard him on the phone earlier. Told Alex to bring wetsuits and a waterproof body bag. Said cliffs are better than propane because water doesn't leave bruises. Her voice cracked on the last word. I reached out, touched her arm, first time I'd touched another human, without flinching. All weekend. You okay, I asked. She laughed a broken sound. I lived with him for 8 months. Let him inside my body. And tomorrow he's going to try to put you in a bag at the bottom of this lake. No, Tom, I'm not okay. I pulled her into a hug, awkward, desperate. She clung to me like I was the last solid thing on earth. Over her shoulder, I saw Tyler walking up from the dock, life jacket slung over one arm, smiling at something on his phone. I released her just as he reached the porch. Everything good, he asked, eyes flicking between us. Perfect, I said. Jennifer was just helping me pick music for dinner. Steaks on the grill, Springsteen on the speakers, one last quiet night before the money changes everything. His grin widened, shark bright. My favorite kind of night. The rest of the day dissolved into a slow-motion car crash. We grilled steaks while the sun bled out across the water. We drank beer mine from a fresh case I opened myself. We told stories around the fire pit like nothing was wrong. Tyler was brilliant, laughing, nostalgic, the perfect nephew. Every memory he dragged out was a knife twist. Remember when Dad taught us to clean fish right here? Remember building the tree fort? Remember promising Aunt Margaret we'd take care of each other? Each one landed like a punch. I matched him memory for memory, smile for smile until my face ached. Jennifer sat between us, pale, silent, recording every word. The tactical team checked in via encrypted text every 30 minutes. 11. All units in position. 47. Sniper has visual on dock. 21 to 19. Alex vehicle sighted on Highway 118 northbound. ETA 2230. Tyler kept glancing at his watch. At 9:27, he stood stretched, yawned theatrically. Getting chilly, he said. Hey, Uncle Tom, you mentioned there the dock lights were acting up. Want to take a look before it's pitch black? I brought my tool bag. There it was. The invitation to die. I felt the wire against my chest pick up my heartbeat, boom, 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 like war drums. I smiled slow and easy. Sure, I said. Let me grab my jacket. Jennifer stood too fast. I'll come, no. Tyler cut in smooth as silk. You stay here, babe. Keep the coffee hot. Man stuff. He laughed and the sound was a blade sliding out of its sheath. I met Jennifer's eyes for 1 second. Terror, apology, trust. I gave her the tiniest nod. Showtime. I pulled on my jacket, the one with the hidden mic in the collar, and followed my murderer down the path to the dock. The same path I'd walked 1,000 times with the little boy who no longer existed. Behind us, unseen in the dark, 6 RCMP officers moved like ghosts through the trees. The moon was a thin silver blade over the water. Tyler carried a flashlight in one hand, toolbox in the other. I carried 24 years of love turned to weapons-grade hate. We reached the end of the dock. The lake waited beneath us, black and patient and deep. Tyler set the toolbox down with a metallic clank. He turned to me, smile-gone eyes flat and dead in the moonlight. Time to stop pretending. Uncle Tom, my heart stopped, then restarted harder. Here it was, the final act. I took 1 step back, felt the edge of the dock under my heel, and smiled the smile I'd saved just for this moment. Couldn't agree more, Tyler. Somewhere in the darkness, red dots began to dance across his chest like fireflies. Game over. The dock stretched out in front of me like a runway lights to hell. Moonlight painted every board silver, turned the lake into a black mirror that reflected nothing and everything at once. The air was sharp with September cold pine resin, and the smell of betrayal so thick I could taste it on my tongue. Tyler walked 2 steps ahead, toolbox in his left hand, big mag light in his right. The beam swept the planks like he was looking for bloodstains that weren't there yet. I followed, hands in my jacket pockets, the hidden mic taped beneath my ribs, picking up every heartbeat. Boom, 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 a war drum, only I could hear. Halfway down the dock, he stopped, turned and smiled the smile that used to get him extra marshmallows. Almost there, he said, voice soft, intimate, the way he spoke when he was 10 and wanted to stay up past bedtime. Just like old times, huh? Old times, I felt the words like a slap. We reached the end, 30 feet of water beneath us, black and patient. The same spot where I taught him to cast his first fishing line, where we scattered David's ashes, where Margaret and I slow danced the night she said yes. Now it was a killing floor. Tyler set the toolbox down with a deliberate metallic clank. He clicked off the flashlight. Darkness rushed in, broken only by the moon and the red pinprick lights I knew were laser sights dancing across his chest like fireflies. He didn't see them yet. He turned to face me, hands loose at his sides, head tilted in that way he used to do when he was about to ask for something big. So he said, voice almost tender, I know you postponed the signing. I know you're having doubts. I said nothing. Let him fill the silence. That's what predators do when they think they're winning. He took 1 step closer. Jen told me everything he said. The OSC, the undercover bullshit, all of it. My stomach dropped through the dock. Jennifer, betrayed, numbered, or impossible. But the doubt flashed hot and bright for half a second, just long enough for Tyler to see it. He laughed low and ugly. Don't look so shocked, Uncle Tom. She's good, I'll give her that. 8 months of playing house. 8 months of letting me think she loved me. He shrugged. But love makes people sloppy. She got soft. Started asking too many questions about you. About the contract. About why I kept checking your pill bottles. He took another step. I confronted her this afternoon while you were napping. She cried. Tried to lie. I showed her the text with Alex. Told her if she didn't come clean, I'd put a bullet in her pretty head and make it look like suicide. He smiled like he was proud of himself. She folded in 30 seconds. Told me you know everything. Told me you called the cops. He spread his arms, theatrical. So here we are. No more games. I felt the world tilt. My mouth went dry. You're lying, I said. Am I? He pulled out his phone, thumbed it alive, held it up so I could see the screen. A photo. Jennifer in the guest room, wrists zip-tied to the headboard, duct tape over her mouth, eyes wide with terror. Timestamp 1942, less than 2 hours ago. My knees almost buckled. He saw it and grinned wider. Insurance, he said. In case you got heroic, she's fine. For now, you play nice, maybe she stays that way. Rage detonated behind my eyes, white hot. You touch one hair on her head. You'll what? He laughed again. You're 63, Uncle Tom. You've got a tricky ticker and a house full of sleeping pills. You're going to have a tragic accident tonight. That's the story. And nobody's coming to save you because the only person who knew the plan is currently tied to my bed. He took the final step close enough that I could smell the bourbon on his breath, the same bottle he tried to poison 2 nights ago. Headlights flared at the top of the path. A pickup truck rolls down the drive, slow, and silent. Alex, Tyler didn't even turn. Right on time, he said. The truck stopped. Door open, boots on gravel. Alex stepped into the moonlight, tall bearded work jacket, carrying a coiled length of chain and a canvas duffel that clinked when he walked. He walked. He nodded at me like we were old friends. Hey, Mr. Fitzgerald. Sorry about this, Tyler clapped once, delighted. Here's how it goes, he said, voice almost gentle now. You're going to sign the partnership agreement tonight. Right here, I brought a pen. Alex is our witness. Then we take a little boat ride. You fall overboard. Tragic. Heart condition, alcohol, sleeping pills, rough water. Happens every year up here. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the folded contract in a silver pen. Sign, he said, holding them out. I stared at the paper like it was a death warrant. Because it was. My mind raced. Jennifer tied up. Cops possibly compromised. Tactical team waiting for a move that might never come if Tyler changed the script. I had seconds. I took the pen. His eyes lit up greedy, triumphant. I clicked it once. The mic under my shirt caught the sound like a gunshot in my head. Then I smiled. You know what your father used to say about greed, Tyler? His brow creased. I didn't wait. I drove the pen into the soft spot under his jaw with every ounce of rage I'd stored for 48 hours. He screamed high and shocked, stumbled back, blood already running down his neck. Alex lunged. I spun, brought my elbow up into his nose, felt cartilage crunch. The toolbox was at my feet. I kicked it hard. It exploded open. Wrenches, pliers, a hammer clattered across the dock. Tyler roared, yanked the pen out, arterial spray painting the moonlit boards. You stupid old fuck, he charged. I sidestepped, grabbed the hammer, swung it like a man possessed. It caught him across the temple with a sickening crack. He went down hard, dazed. Alex tackled me from behind, arms like steel bands around my chest. We hit the dock together. My head bounced off the wood. Stars exploded. He was on top, fist raised. Jammed my thumb into his eye. He howled. Rolled, came up with the hammer again. Police hands up now. The night detonated, red dots everywhere. Flashlights blinding. Morrison's voice amplified and furious. Tyler Fitzgerald, Alex Morton on the ground. Final warning. Tyler scrambled to his feet, blood streaming down his face, eyes wild. He looked at me like I was a ghost. You... how? I smiled through the blood in my mouth. Jennifer's fine, you piece of shit. She's been feeding you bullshit for 6 hours. The photo photoshopped. The confession recorded. Every word you just said is on tape. His face crumpled beige, betrayal, terror all at once. Alex froze, hands halfway up, realizing the trap too late. Tyler looked at the tree line, saw the red dots, saw the silhouettes moving in. Then he looked at me. For one heartbeat, the mask slipped completely, and I saw the little boy, again scared, cornered, 7 years old at his father's grave. Uncle Tom, he whispered. Please. I felt something inside me tear in half. Then I remembered the voice memo. I remembered the weighted bag. I remembered the smile while he planned to watch me drown. I lifted the hammer. Don't, Morrison barked through the bullhorn. Tom, stand down. We've got him. Tyler dropped to his knees, sobbing, suddenly, real tears or fake. I no longer cared. Alex hit the deck, hands behind his head, muttering, I want a lawyer. Officers swarmed. Black tactical gear, rifles up, commands sharp. Tyler was face down in seconds, wrists zip-tied, blood smearing the boards where Margaret and I used to dance. Morrison reached me, gently took the hammer from my shaking hand. You okay? I looked down at Tyler, facing the planks, shoulders heaving. No, I said, but I'm alive. They hauled him up. He looked at me one last time, mascara of blood and tears. I loved you, he said, voice small, broken. I leaned in so only he could hear. I loved you more, I whispered. That's why this hurts so goddamn much. They dragged him away. Alex followed silent. I stood alone at the end of the dock, hammer still warm in my hand, lake black and calm beneath me. Jennifer came running, freed from whatever fake restraints she'd staged for Tyler's benefit. She reached me, breathing hard, eyes wild. I'm sorry I had to sell it. I had to make him believe. I pulled her into my arms and held her while we both shook. Over her shoulder, I saw Morrison cuffing Tyler into the back of the SUV, reading him his rights in a calm, relentless voice. Conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud. The list went on. Tyler didn't look back. The red and blue lights started flashing, silent, painting the trees like a crime scene Christmas. I sank to my knees on the dock. Hammer clattering away. Jennifer knelt with me. We didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. The lake kept its silence. The loons were quiet tonight. And somewhere in the distance, a boy I used to love started screaming my name over and over until the SUV doors slammed and the sound cut off forever. I stayed there until dawn, knees bleeding into the wood lake, lapping gently below, like it had seen everything and forgiven nothing. When the sun finally came up, it found me still alive. In the dock, our dock was stained with someone else's blood. I closed my eyes and finally let myself cry. Not for the man in handcuffs, for the little boy who had never really existed, for the uncle who had believed in him anyway, and for the version of me that died on this dock tonight right beside the monster I'd helped create. The water took it all and gave nothing back, but I was still breathing. That would have to be enough. 2 years later, Lake Rousseau, late September 2025. The loons are calling again. 3 long notes, then silence, the same sound that used to feel like a warning and now feels like forgiveness. I'm 65 today. I'm sitting on the end of the same dock where I almost died, coffee in one hand, Margaret's old wool blanket over my shoulders. The boards beneath me have been sanded and restained twice since that night, but if I close my eyes, I can still feel the blood under my fingernails. Some stains don't come out. The cottage looks different now. New windows, new roof. I tore out the kitchen island where Tyler used to flip pancakes and built a smaller one just big enough for 2. I kept the guest room, though. Couldn't bring myself to change it. Some nights I stand in the doorway and try to remember the boy who used to sleep there, the one who begged for ghost stories and extra marshmallows. Most nights I can't. The trial lasted 9 weeks. They moved it to Toronto because Muskoka couldn't find 12 jurors who didn't already hate Tyler's face from the news. Every morning I put on a suit that felt like borrowed skin and sat in the front row while the Crown played the recordings. My voice on the dock. You were going to watch me drown for $19 million. His voice calm and cold. I decided I wanted all of it. Fair's fair. The jury cried. I didn't. I'd used up every tear the night it happened. They brought in the dive weights, the chain, the weighted dry bag still sealed in evidence plastic. They played the 2:14 a.m. voice memo where he laughed about dragging me off the dock himself. They showed the jury the photo of Jennifer zip-tied, the fake one he'd used to break me, and then the real footage from the cottage cameras of her sitting calmly in the command van, sipping coffee while Tyler confessed everything. I watched his mother, my sister Patricia, collapse in the gallery when the guilty verdicts came down. Attempted murder. Conspiracy to commit murder. 3 counts of fraud going back 7 years. Life with no parole for 25. Alex took a plea for 15. I didn't go to the sentencing, couldn't. Instead, I drove north, parked at the cottage, and sat on this dock until sunrise. Jennifer came with me that day. She still comes up most weekends. She never took the McGill hoodie off the hook by the door, says it reminds her she survived him too. She made detective last spring. The citation on her wall reads, "Extraordinary courage in the face of prolonged personal danger." She rolls her eyes when people mention it. I don't. Some nights we sit out here with a bottle of red and talk until the stars burn out. Some nights we don't talk at all. Both are okay. The money came through clean in the end. 38 million minus taxes minus the victim's restitution fund. I set up for the people. Tyler bled dry before me. The dentist who lost his house got his mortgage paid off. The single mom whose college fund vanished got every penny back, plus interest. There were more of them than I knew, 11 in total. I met every single one. Apologized on behalf of the family I thought I had. Most of them hugged me. One spat in my face. I let her. Sentinel Forge still exists. I sold the name and the patents kept a small advisory stake. The new owners renamed the cottage wing conference room after Margaret. There's a plaque by the door that says, "She taught us that security begins with trust, and trust must be earned every single day." I visit once a year. I read the plaque, I leave flowers, I drive home. The nightmares come in waves. Some nights I wake up gasping, Tyler's hands around my throat, the black water closing over my head. Some nights it's David standing at the foot of the bed asking why I couldn't save his boy. Some nights it's Margaret silent, just looking at me with those clear gray eyes that always saw everything. I built a small fire pit on the cliff where the snipers waited that night. I burn a letter to each of them every year on the anniversary. David Margaret, the Tyler who existed before greed ate him alive. The smoke rises straight up into the stars and I tell them I'm trying. I still am. Last month I got a letter from Millhaven. Tyler's handwriting's shaky now. Uncle Tom. I think about that night every day. I think about the man I became, and I don't recognize him. I think about the man you were and how I destroyed that too. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But if you ever want to visit, I'll be here. I'm sorry isn't enough, but it's all I have left. Tyler. I read it on this dock at sunset. I folded it once, twice, and fed it to the lake. The paper floated for a long time before it drank the water and sank. I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. Jennifer says healing isn't a destination. It's learning to live with the limp. She's wiser than her years. This morning I woke up before dawn and found a small package on the porch. No return address. Inside was a single white loon feather and a note in handwriting I didn't recognize. You kept the lake secret. The lake kept you. That's enough. That's everything. I don't know who left it. Could have been Morrison. Could have been one of the tactical team. Could have been the lake itself. I carried the feather down here and laid it on the boards where Tyler's blood once soaked through the cracks. The sun is fully up now. The loons have gone quiet. I stand and stretch, bones that remember every second of that night, and walk back up the path. The cottage door is open. Coffee's on. Jennifer's humming something old in the kitchen, Springsteen, I think. I pause on the porch, look out at the water one last time. It's flat, calm, reflecting sky and pine, and the man I'm still becoming. I whisper the only truth I know for sure anymore. I survived you, I tell the lake, the ghost, the boy who never really was, and I'm still here. Then I step inside, close the door softly behind me, and let the smell of coffee and the sound of someone who chose to stay pull me gently into the rest of my life. The loons will call again tonight, and tomorrow, and every day I have left. That's enough. That's everything.